Can you hear me?
No.
I mean, but like through the headphones.
Yes.
Like if I was to say, "Hey, Josh," you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to watch you very carefully.
Just read my lips. Yes. Okay. See, I could hear that very good in my headphones. But all right. So how you want to start this thing out? We're recording right now, by the way. This is the Terribly Vexed Podcast. Do you want to start now?
Sure. Could we make up sponsors like I was doing in the test there and just say that we had,
I don't know.
even though we don't?
I don't know how that works.
Probably not. I guess we get sued.
The off chance somebody from Budweiser
Should listen to
hears
this.
and then hates this show
And the shit we say.
and this stuff. If we're going to have sponsors, we're going to stop cursing. I don't give a fuck.
Clean it up a little bit. Let me do just a little adjusting here.
Do it.
For the listeners, it's the first time using headphones, so we're just having some
Do you
minor
need me to
technical
scoot this thing over for you? There you go.
Just trying to, it's a real podcast now.
Yeah.
So I've got the headphones on, so.
But you can only hear yourself,
Right.
not me. And you got like the big over-ear sound canceling.
Oh, they're good. They're
Yeah.
real good.
Better
I can't
than
hear
mine.
anything.
So they look professional. The head cushion, which
They're-
actually look like they're working mine. I'm feeling them right now, and they just garbage.
And I can't hear Justin, so I'm having to read his lips
Yeah.
very carefully, everything he says.
So even if I'm not, I
Right.
just mouthed bad words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so
well,
we're
this
back.
is the Terribly Vexed Podcast with Justin and Josh. And
Yes.
we don't really have a specific topic this time, right? Like
No.
a general topic,
Yeah.
but we might go off a little bit.
Well, originally, I was going to do like a introduction to conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Was going to be the sort of main point of this podcast.
Right.
But it's been so long since we had our last podcast in real time, since we had our last recording sesh.
Yep.
That, I continue to read and I continue to listen to books and other podcasts on different things. And
that's the thing. See, you're dare I say, balls deep into the conspiracy stuff, especially the conspiracy stuff.
Oh,
I think you're deeper in me than I realized. I didn't realize you were so into this when we started this whole
this
thing.
is more government cover up than it is really conspiracy theory. But
Yeah.
the two were, they want to give conspiracy theory a bad name, which was kind of the point of this podcast too.
That's true.
Because everything just sort of gets grouped into being a conspiracy theories. You're
Right.
talking about government cover-ups.
And that's what I was saying, earlier to you. Is there's always like, okay, that's a believable. So I can see the government doing it, and then the conspiracy guys, they make that little jump, and you're like, oh, you're a lunatic. Okay,
I think that's by design.
you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, disinformation is just as, if not more important than actual information, because you can flood the world with disinformation, a bunch of nonsense.
Right.
And then if something did happen, or if something is happening in real time, like we're probably living through right now,
Right.
then you can just, nobody has an argument for it anymore. You can't have a conversation about it.
Right. That's kind of like what one of the theories on UFOs are. UAPs now, I should say. But it's like, they're military aircraft, top secrets. But yeah, let them say they're aliens. Who cares? Like, that just keeps them off our back. You know what I'm saying? Like they're just letting them go with the whole alien thing.
I just wonder what the
And then-
purpose. I think that's what a lot of people are kind of thinking. At least what I've seen and heard and read. Had a conversation with a buddy of ours, Steven, about this, and I'm kind of wondering where this is all going. Why they're talking about this now? Is it just a distraction? Probably. If you've got official channels talking about anything, normally it's bullshit. And if this report, which the big whopping 9 pages that they released from their 70, 80 years worth of UFO research.
It's riveting material.
Yeah.
I fell
If
asleep
they're
in the
releasing
first
this,
paragraph.
Yeah, and I
whole,
shake my head.
It's my whole thing with anything that's released. But what aren't they released? Like, we have to make them release all this stuff. Bullshit.
No.
They're not going to release what they don't want to release. And this whole report thing was stupid.
Which I didn't bother reading, but you did.
I read it. It's kind of like, you know what it was kind of like? It was kind of like reading a tax form. I fell asleep immediately.
Very boring.
Yeah. Like, I'm just going to read just the first sentence. What do you think? You ready?
Always.
This preliminary report is provided by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence in response to the provision in Senate Report 116-233 accompanying the Intelligence Authorization Act for fiscal year 2021 that the DNI, in consultation with the Secretary of Defense, is to submit an intelligence assessment of the threat posed by unidentified aerial phenomena and the progress the Department of Defense United Aerial Phenomena Task Force has made in understanding this threat.
It's so official sounding.
No period. That's just one thing.
This just before we started recording, this was, we said that this is nonsense.
Yeah.
That's an intern put that together. You know, it's just more runaround.
Yep.
Not to say that I don't think that there's been legitimate encounters and people have seen things and experienced things.
Yeah.
I'm not dismissing any of that stuff at all.
Right.
Let it be known. But
there's a point where it gets a little.
Well, like I was saying, the they're talking about a lot of stuff right now with the Space Force thing that's happening, where they're, I guess, moving militarily into space, and wanting to do a lot of stuff there now. It's getting kind of scary, or at least it should be to a lot of people. More surveillance,
Oh yeah.
And the fact that this was released from the Pentagon, and no doubt the CIA and other intelligence agencies are attached to it. It's just like, could they be using this as a reason to raise budgets for military?
Yeah, definitely.
Because you want to get people scared all the time, obviously. It's always about fear, keeping the serfs terrified.
Yeah, that was one of the big things in this. They probably can become a threat. Probably. There's a lot of use of the word
Maybe.
Probably in this, yeah. There are probably multiple types of UAP. It's just, yeah.
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 So,
we know there are.
I
don't
do you want to? Is there anything else in there that's kind of stands out to you? That's just like, you see that in a lot of wording. They kind of make it, which and stuff that I've read before. They make it somewhat kind of ambiguous when they're talking about certain things. Just because, hey, should this document get released, or should this document, like in some cases, like I think it was like COINTELPRO, where there was a break-in to like a FBI field office. I think it was in like Pennsylvania or something like that. And that's when they discovered that operation had been running for years and years, and that was the one where they infiltrated various civil rights groups and stuff like that. So they write things ambiguously. So just in case, but still you can glean from the documents basically what's going on or what's being said.
Yeah.
So
yeah, like there's a whole section in this. UAP probably lack a single explanation. It's like, well, yeah. Then they give a list of airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, foreign adversary systems, and then other. So it's like, what the hell?
So at no point in there,
this?
in the big 9 pages that they provided, is anything that really says anything about in certain
specific
terms.
Yeah, and I'm not expecting. I don't know. I want to believe that there are some aliens behind this, but I'm not 100%. And I knew there wouldn't be anything about that in this, and there is not. So, but like you're right, it's just a lot of words. There's probably like 3 sentences in there that are worth anything.
Yeah.
But for the most, it's stupid. It was dumb. It would be.
So, like, just kind of staying with that just a second, like, and I can't remember if it was you this past week that I texted about this, but I tend to think a lot of these sightings are probably going to be just secret military aircraft, right?
I would say the bulk.
Most of them are going to be that.
Yeah.
Because, like, and this is just to kind of help when I give this information about, the SR-71 Blackbird, which was, would I text you about that this past week? Maybe it was
you
Jason.
Sent me about the 54th Weather Squadron, that whole thing.
Well, there was so much
reconnaissance
constantly
squadron.
having these conversations with people now, so I lose track of. Anyway, just put this in perspective for a second. The whole point of this, where this is going. The SR-71 Blackbird, that project is about almost 70 years old at this point. Okay, and so I guess with the early 60s is when they finally, I think they were approaching. Certain people about this project in the late 50s, and then it finally sort of kicked off in the early 60s. And it would have been mid to late 60s when they finally, I guess, built the plane or whatever. So you're like 70 years ago.
Yeah.
And this plane, and these are just like the official stats, and these aren't always correct. They could be close just because of other ways information's been released or whatever. But this plane that's almost 70 years old with this old ass technology could go at about 2,500 miles per hour 70 years ago.
Yeah.
And it reached altitudes between 80 and 90,000 feet 70 years ago. So can you imagine what they can do now?
Yeah. I've heard that they're like the military is at like 60 to 100 years ahead of what we even know now.
Yeah, I have no doubt that your Area 51s and stuff weren't necessarily just for UFO research, breaking apart, supposed UFOs and looking at their technology, but developing our own.
100%.
That was
sure
in places like that. And I seriously doubt that, still could be, obviously. There's nobody's broken into Area 51 to see with their own eyes and reported back. So there still could be, and still probably are, things that are going on there.
I mean, that whole storm Area 51 thing was kind of a letdown, wasn't it? Didn't get very far with that. I know. Why is that?
What were they going to do?
I'm not sure. What if they got in? Like, were they okay?
They would have killed them all.
Well, yeah, but let's just say they somehow did it properly.
Even if they were like at a gate. They were still nowhere near the actual base.
God, no. It wasn't really a secret, so they had plenty of time to hide everything, get everything out of there.
Yeah, so it's like how many other bases are out there that we don't know about because that one was around for a long time before anyone knew anything about it.
Yeah.
And, just put that in perspective. 70 years ago, they're making things that could do that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They do the same thing with, like, nuclear submarines too. Like it's classified, like how deep they can go and how fast, how many knots they can travel underwater.
Yeah.
But think about like a submarine, nuclear powered submarine today could probably, and realistically probably does, go between 50 and 80 miles per hour underwater. That's crazy.
It is.
Because that thing's, the smallest ones are like 300 and something feet long. The bigger ones, the ballistic missile submarines, are in the 500-foot range. But the fast attack submarines, I would say they could probably go anywhere between 50 to 80 miles an hour underwater. They can be anywhere in the world in, a few days. Because they just, What
are your thoughts on would you like to be on one of those? It'd be kind of cool. Like a real one.
Unless
not like a down periscope
shit goes
one.
South,
Right. Right.
That whole implosion thing.
I know, but it seems so cool, like being on when you're down there. I know for a fact you would like to be on a sub. You told me about your Silent Hunter 3 days.
Oh, I still play.
Yeah.
If I,
Yeah. I love that story.
Silent Hunter.
Making your coffee and pretending you're on the on the bridge. I
the
love
captain.
That. Yeah.
Out there on my own.
Yep.
Making my own decisions.
Yeah. It is cool. The
Yeah,
thought of it.
I had a lot of books. I used to read up on that quite a bit. I was interested in subs in my youth.
Yeah. How can you not?
But then the reality of it is like, no, I wouldn't want to be on a submarine. It's, in theory, it's
the
cool,
idea
it's fun.
of it that is kick-ass.
Yeah.
But it probably stinks.
It could.
I imagine it would smell bad.
It's not like a 1942 U-boat.
That's what I'm basing the stench on.
With lice and, they...
a lot of sweat.
Because back then they couldn't like bathe. Right, now they just make their own water. They have desalination units on the subs. They can just make as much water as they want, and so they bathe regularly. Those guys in like the World War II, they didn't bathe.
I know, it looks disgusting.
They didn't shave. The lice was a problem, So, but just think about what they could make now, 70 years on from. Something like the Blackbird. And that thing nobody knew about that thing for a long time, too. So it was classified. They had no idea.
Yeah. And, what's that? What's the big one? Project whatever. Teleportation. The battleship or something like that?
That would have been the Philadelphia Project.
There we go. Philadelphia Experiment.
Yes.
There it is.
You said project, and that got me off on that because there's operations and projects.
Yeah, I was thinking, okay. But, yeah.
They made a movie about that.
Yeah.
And it was probably bullshit, but maybe it wasn't. I read into it a little bit, and supposedly the guy that came up with it was kind of a quack.
Was that one of the movies on that list you sent me today? About the
I'm not sure if it was or not.
Flicks?
There's a lot of movies on that list.
I've never seen that before.
Jason sent me
list.
that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. What the listeners may be curious about is what list we're referring to. And it's a list that's been compiled. It says it's a complete list, but I seriously doubt that. It's a list of all of the known movies that the Pentagon has funded in some way. Department of Defense, Pentagon. Are you pulling it up on your phone right now?
Pulling it up right now.
And so if you just want to maybe throw out a few of those for the listeners, you can find this online.
Let's pull this up. This is another thing I'm sick and tired of. I want to download this PDF, sign up with Facebook, sign up with Google, or create your own brand new account.
It won't just let you.
I don't know, unless I clicked on something wrong. Did you already pull it up?
Yeah, I've got it right here.
There you go.
Just as an example, Day After Tomorrow, Apollo 13. There's a lot of movies on the list that you would already just, pretty much know that anything that has to do with the military, where they kind of want things to, be represented in a good light, they would be on this list. But here's the interesting: the next Karate Kid,
every Iron Man
was that
movie.
Will Smith's son that was in the next Karate Kid? That wasn't the original.
I don't know.
It wasn't Karate Kid 3 because that still had what's his name, Ralph Macchio in it, right?
I don't know.
Or was that the girl? The girl was in the third one.
See, I don't know. I'm not, contrary to popular belief, I'm not the biggest fan of the Karate Kid movies. Air Force One is on here.
All right.
Flight, is that the Denzel movie? That was a good one.
Follow the Fleet, Devil's Brigade, Air Force One, like you said. It's on the second page. And this is a lengthy list, right? This is how many pages?
Where you go? Karate Kid 2. Right there. Why is Karate...
Toy Soldiers. That's a movie from the 80s with Will Wheaton and Sean Astin. Patriot Games, The Rocketeer, Firefox. That's a Clint Eastwood movie from the early 80s. It's kind of like a plane that he has to either steal the plane or he has to get the plane back. I can't remember, but it's basically like an SR-71 plane. It's that plane.
You said Firefox?
Firefox, yeah. It's a good movie.
Never heard of it.
Torpedo Run.
Yeah, Red Dawn.
Yeah.
It's a darn good one.
Yep. Wolverines, man.
I used to tell people I hated that movie just to get them
off,
get them going, and it worked.
Towering Inferno. So a lot of movies you'd expect. They have military stuff in them. A lot of submarine movies.
Yeah.
Hearts in Atlantis. Hearts in Atlantis. That's is that Anthony Hopkins?
I think so.
And that's where like the CIA guys are looking for him because he has telepathic powers. So it's like the CIA MK Ultra thing. So again, you've got the them wanting to have a
Yeah.
have their little pinky dipped into it so that they make sure that they get shown in a.
Yeah. Oh, and here,
Even though they're supposed to be the bad guys, you know what I'm saying? They had to, in some way, have something attached to it.
now I see one on here that I'm just trying. I just want to know why. Was there like maybe a depiction of radar, possibly in Ernest Saves Christmas? That's all I can think of. Has something to do with.
I don't remember.
Why would the Pentagon back that movie?
Well, that's the thing. It's like some of them on here, like the Karate Kid movies. Why are you got?
That's true.
I mean, anytime the military's mentioned, I mean, he's supposed to be a soldier, right?
Who?
He was when he came over from Okinawa.
Oh, I'm still stuck on Ernest. I thought you were talking
Is
about.
Ernest supposed to be a soldier?
That's why I was wondering. I don't remember that. Jurassic Park 3?
And I don't really. Well, you'd have to anytime there's anything having to do with military, they would want to partake of that production.
Yeah, Captain Phillips, of course. All right, I gotta stop looking through this. Gonna make me just talk about movies.
Anyway,
I
you
want to
can
know
find
why
that.
is Captain Ron not on this list?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah,
Captain Ron.
I got another one for you.
Jaws.
Major
Is Jaws
Payne.
on there? What's that?
Major Payne. Come on now. What about
Makes
Ernest
sense.
Goes to the Army?
Full Metal Jacket. I haven't looked through it thoroughly. I just sort of glanced over it. You can find it online. Perhaps we can include the link to it so you can look at it yourself.
Yes, I will put this in the show notes.
The show notes.
Yeah. All right,
It's
I
just
gotta stop
interesting.
looking at this. But yeah, so the Pentagon gets their fingers in.
GoldenEye.
Well, yeah, it's the best James Bond movie ever made.
Yep.
And best video game ever made.
Good soundtrack, too. Good music.
Yeah.
Good score, I
Although,
should say.
I will say, the Casino Royale theme, loved it.
Yeah.
Well, what's his name? Who is that?
Daniel Craig?
Oh, yeah, but Chris Cornell did the song. Yeah. It was good. Movie talk.
We're getting off
Yeah, but
off the rails here a little bit.
how about, speaking of,
It's fine because it's going to be a long one, so.
have you ever seen the movie Conspiracy Theory?
Yes.
Love it.
Yep.
How good is that movie?
Real good.
Mel Gibson. I say what you want. I'm a Mel Gibson fan.
Well, I am, too.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. I'm glad that's settled.
There's no,
Yeah. All right.
no rift between us here because of Mel Gibson.
Yep. I was hoping that was going to be a heated debate, but I can't think of anything bad Mel Gibson did. I love what
you were
women
hoping
want.
that I wouldn't like him, and then you did, and then I would.
Yeah.
But Justin, you do know that Mel is, he's a little racist.
Well, you got to separate the art from the man sometimes. Woody Allen.
He's impassioned. He was drunk.
Yeah. What are you going to do? He's angry and drunk.
That's me right now.
I will say those phone calls were pretty funny.
Yeah.
But, him and
Alec Baldwin's were pretty good too.
yeah. Where he's yelling at his daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I will get on a plane. Imagine your dad threatening you that way. I will get on a plane and fly across the country. And then did he call her a fat pig at one point? You're a fat
He called her
pig.
everything, I
Yeah,
think.
he really did.
He was out of his mind.
He was not happy with his daughter.
not happy.
Charlie Sheen had a good one, too. That was a good little couple weeks that he had, winning and all that. Loved it.
Yep. Enjoyed it thoroughly.
Yeah. So, speaking of conspiracy theories.
Which is supposed to be what we're talking about here today.
I know.
That's what people are tuning in for.
That's true. Well, I have a brand new one that it blossomed. I witnessed it blossom last week at work. You know that whole building collapse in Miami?
Yep.
I guess. I haven't looked into this. This is just what I'm hearing this guy talk about. He was saying that the Navy was doing something off the coast there. Caused like a 3-point-something earthquake that they say may have helped that building collapse a little bit.
Yeah.
They were like firing stuff down in the ocean, doing whatever. So there's that whole part that's not confirmed. in itself is a conspiracy. But then these guys were talking about it. What were they firing down there? Were they fighting aliens underwater?
Oh, gosh.
So it's an underwater alien war that caused that Miami building collapse. Brand spanking
no
new
other buildings
conspiracy.
collapsed because
You've
they
heard
were
it
all,
here first. Well, this one was already damaged a little bit.
I'd seen where, I guess a building inspector had supposedly said something about it in 2018.
Yeah.
Which that was my first thought, was like, we're not doing building inspections anymore?
I know.
And also the time period that building was built could have been when a bunch of stuff was being thrown up. A lot of shysters moving down there.
Oh yeah.
There was kind of a boom, a building boom.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they didn't follow, they didn't go by permits and things like that. So there was no real keeping an eye on people as they were constructing these things, just so they could make a quick buck and get out of town quick, sell it off. And so that, and also what it was built on, like the foundation, like the ground, there's been erosion. It was probably just backfilled with a bunch of garbage. Yeah. It was probably an accident waiting to happen.
Well,
right on the coast, you got that salty sea air, and structures, they don't hold up well after, 30, 40, 50, decade after decade, we'll say.
Right. Especially in Miami.
Right.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
I did read a story about some lady that lived there, was talking to her son, and she's like, I hear this popping sound all day today. Something's creaking in the building. And next thing you know, she's gone.
You may want to investigate that.
Yeah. But that would be, I don't know. If I was living in a building and I heard popping, I don't think I would immediately think, like, oh, the building's about to fall down. I'll just be like, something's...
a little buckling, some
it's settling.
Cracking.
Yeah. But
I guess it was a pretty old one, too. I don't know if that was it 50s, 60s that one was built?
No clue. I have no idea.
I'm not going to Google it. But I think it was had a little age on it. So.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, we got
an alien fight. Just right off the coast.
You know me. It's alien. It's everything alien.
All comes down to aliens.
Yeah.
Could be.
100%.
We'll never know. But I don't know.
Well, I think
they keep releasing those 9-page reports, man.
Part of the reason they might be, releasing these videos, getting everything out there, maybe something is about to happen that they know that they're not going to be able to stop. That's all I got there. I mean,
there's all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah. It's like that.
They're preparing us, is what you're saying?
Yeah. The slow.
They're getting us ready
to
slowly
getting us acclimated to it.
Yeah.
And then when it actually does happen, it's like, oh, okay, well, it is real. All right, let's go to work. Yeah, nothing's. Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, I guess we'll just go back to work.
Crop circles.
Yeah. And then that would start a whole new thing, though. Imagine that. Aliens show up, and then you got to start work with one of them. Guys are going to be, that's going to be the next.
Or you just
it'll be a species war, not a race war.
Zipping by, as you're driving down the highway.
Yeah, they're flying by. They're drinking gas and just, yeah.
Until that day, until one is, flying past me down the highway, I'm going to just continue to assume that it's more bullshit from the government and the various intelligence agencies that are, screwing with us on a daily basis. That's kind of where I'm going to go with it. And that it ultimately probably serves some sort of defense purpose where they want to raise a budget and use it as another way to sort of just keep the serfs confused, scared. There's lots of those ops being run all the time,
Yeah.
So until something's, pulling me out of my bed in the middle of the night.
Hey, you may have.
And sucking me into the sky.
You may have been, and you just don't realize it. They say the ones people remember are the rare exceptions to how often it really happens.
They messed up a little bit there.
It's a botched abduction. Yeah. So.
Yeah, we all work with goofballs, and
I know. Yeah.
We all work with clowns.
It's like any other job. The abductor has to.
Yeah.
I'll be back tonight. I gotta
It's
go
just
get
a thing they got to
Randy.
do.
Yeah.
And they got to go get somebody, and, they mess up.
Mm-hmm. They get written up, and then next thing you know, they're on the, whatever other job they do. Yeah.
They got to report.
I wish something clever came to me when I was trying to think of that.
So, yeah, it's, anything's a possibility. We discuss all possibilities here
Yeah.
on the Terribly Vexed Podcast.
Yeah.
Because we're asking questions just like you are.
Simulation theory. This is
What is
all
it?
fake.
Sorry, I can't
Simulation
hear you.
theory. Sorry. Just mouthed it. Simulation theory. Thoughts?
I don't have any. The Matrix? Is that what that is?
I guess one of the variants of it, I think.
Not familiar with it. Is there a document that I can look at that would...
I forgot. You need a document. I'm
helps.
sure there's plenty. There's got to be. The internet, it's got loads of documents. But I think, I don't know. It's the whole theory that this is all just fake. We're
Right.
living in a programmed world.
Just like the Matrix, like we're plugged in?
That's one version. Another version is like, this is just all, where this is all digital, and we have no clue. Like, it's just one being has programmed this whole thing or whatever.
This is good because this is really part of what this episode was supposed to be, which was conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And this is one of them.
100%.
There are many.
Yeah. Except one that I personally believe and I don't think is a conspiracy is Flat Earth.
One that you don't believe in.
I said that I do, but no, I do not believe in that one. But it's ridiculous. A lot of people do, and I don't get it. I don't get that one at all, and I wish somebody could explain it to me in a way that it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so I guess officially now we can sort of start like getting into the whole conspiracy theory topic, the introduction to conspiracy theory now, okay?
Let's do it.
This is official. So, like, and I sort of put a list of a few of these out. That's one of them. Flat Earth, lizard people,
Yeah. Yeah,
from
that's a big
Saturn.
one.
I think they generally like to say they come from Saturn. What's weird, though, is that all of, like, the JFK, like, theories, like, of his assassination,
Yeah.
they get grouped into, moon landing was a hoax, the Federal Reserve, Watergate, there was a trial, obviously, and Nixon got ousted, but a lot of these things, they still get grouped into being conspiracy theories. Things surrounding like Iran-Contra, the Great Depression, Pearl Harbor, 9/11, CIA, MK Ultra mind control, the USS Liberty, COINTELPRO, which I mentioned earlier, Bigfoot. All of these things get grouped into one big clump as conspiracy theories, and they're really not. There's government cover-up, there's things that actually happened, and then there's things that you cannot prove, and you'll never be able to prove. You're just like, I'm going to go out and, prove that there's not, that I can see the horizon, like your Flat Earth thing, right?
Yeah.
Where those guys go out. You've seen a couple of those videos.
Oh, yeah.
They do all this stuff, and there's no way. Oh, you can't go to Antarctica if you really need to prove it. Why don't you just go?
Yeah.
Get a group
Try to
of
go there.
people that all believe the same thing and
Yeah.
go,
Yeah, and then some of
I don't
them,
want to disparage anybody here, though. If you believe that, that's fine.
Yeah, no
We're not here
hatred.
to do that.
You're just an idiot. I'm playing.
I mean, it's fine. Believe whatever you want to believe.
Yeah.
But you can't group JFK assassination with
No.
Flat Earth. But I think that's
No.
ultimately what the point of these things are. We don't know where they came from either, which is what I find interesting. Like your Flat Earth,
Yeah.
I don't know where that originated from.
I know. That's just one of those odd things. Like, I don't
Right.
know.
But did it come from the CIA, which is one of
Right.
their main things is to throw out disinformation.
Yeah.
So, hey, let's create some really stupid shit, throw it out there, and then anybody that labels themselves a conspiracy theorist, you can discredit them.
Yeah.
Easily.
Oh, yeah.
Because then they say, well, he believes in, theories around JFK or Iran-Contra, and I think, that doesn't wholly fit into this because, we know this happened. A plane crashed. People were captured. Guns were found on a plane. We know that shit was going on, but it's still, people don't even really know about that thing, you know?
Yeah, I am definitely not that familiar with that, for sure. Like,
and that was a big one.
This is,
in the 80s.
Yep.
And that fits into like Gary Webb's thing where, you know, who Gary Webb was, the journalist that wrote the Dark Alliance series in the 90s. You're familiar with this, though, right? Okay.
No.
Briefly, not to get too far into it, he was a journalist, supposedly committed suicide in 2004. You can look at his wiki page, you know, shot himself twice in the head.
As you do.
As you do when you commit suicide.
Yeah.
Not to say that it can't happen. Sometimes people miss the mark and they have just enough left in them to get it again. But given what he had reported on years earlier, it's a little suspicious. So his whole Dark Alliance series that he wrote in the 60s or in the mid 90s, 96, was just basically had to do with the CIA sort of working with the Contras, bringing in drugs to fund illegal operations in Central America. Okay, that's basically what it was. And he had just dug into a lot of old documents and stuff from the 80s, from like, you know, court documents and stuff. And the whole thing was, he was approached by the girlfriend of one of the guys that was involved, that was heavily involved in Los Angeles in this. And he had been arrested. He'd been in prison for several years. And she was basically just looking for a reporter to report on his, you know, on his case.
Yeah.
And what was going on with him and stuff. But still, to this day, that is just a conspiracy theory. But ultimately what happened to Gary was that the established media, which is all controlled by the CIA, sounds like I'm crazy when I say that, but it really was, and it really is. They nitpicked his work, his series apart, just with the minor discrepancies that he had in his reporting, and that dismissed his work. That's not true. So a lot of these people that were doing that, like they even had a team of people from the LA Times that went after Gary Webb personally, not just about his work, but it was like, you know, the Get Gary Webb team. They had a team of people, I think there was like 19 or 20 people that went after him specifically to destroy his career, which is ultimately what they did. He worked at a paper in Sacramento or San Jose. And, you know, he lost his career, and he was sort of, and if you'll read Dark Alliance, which I recommend people do, he was kind of warned prior to all that if you approach this topic, if you start talking about intelligence agencies like the CIA, like you and I are doing right now, they'll ruin your life, you know, because he had other reporters that had gone after them in other ways, never really, you know, connecting the dots as well as he did, through all of his reporting and the book that he put together and the series that he wrote, that they'll ruin your life and your career will be over. But he persisted, and he did it anyway. And ultimately, they did ruin his life. So it's certainly possible that he committed suicide himself, but ultimately they caused him to do it.
Right.
So even if you don't believe he pulled the trigger and shot himself twice in the head, or that somebody else did it, you know, then he certainly would have done it himself, because he wasn't going to be a journalist anymore in the sense that he was when, you know. So anyway, that's a conspiracy theory that all that happened. But it's thoroughly documented, and people pretty much know it now.
Yeah, there's a few different layers of conspiracy theory.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, what we need, what people need to know.
Right. It's not just a blanket.
Not be ashamed to start looking into these things yourself, because you might be, you know, labeled a conspiracy theorist, or you're a nutter.
When he said look into these things yourself, he was looking at me and pointing at me, like, because yeah, I need to start apparently.
Right.
But yeah, like that.
Last thing I want to be called is a normie. I don't want to be a normie. Like all these people that watch the TV, they go to the ball game.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't know any of this shit. They know none of it. They know absolutely nothing about anything, and they want to talk about it like you know what you don't know anything.
But
so
don't they say that ignorance is bliss?
I've heard that recently. From some people.
Yeah.
And it's, if you fall for all this horse shit you see on the TV and you're getting all worked up by this stuff, that's not even, there's nothing there to any of that stuff. That stuff's just meant to, like, grab your attention.
Yeah.
It's provocative, you know.
I think the news is it's pretty much entertainment.
It is
It's
entertainment.
A show.
Well,
yeah, it's really not.
all of these news outlets are all just PR for the government. That's all they are.
What happened to the good old days? When was the last?
There never were any.
I mean, but of the good old days of news, when you had like one guy at 11, he stopped at 11:30, and that was it.
They never existed. I'm sorry to say.
No, you're Dan
Well,
Rathers.
you got news anchors and shit that read a teleprompter,
Man,
but they're not doing any reporting.
When was the golden age of news, though?
There wasn't one. That's what I'm trying to say.
You sure?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
there wasn't one.
fuck me then.
Yeah, because if for example, you just go back and read some of like Fletcher Prouty's writings. His book came out in like 72, 73, 74, somewhere in there. But prior to that, he tells you that all through the 40s and 50s and stuff, all these news anchors, these trusted Cronkites and all these assholes.
Cronkite, that's the guy I couldn't
They
think
were
of.
all already well-established assets or officers, essentially. There's different terminology. They say officers, somebody that does this particular thing, but they were assets already, even back in those days. So there never was. I'm sorry to say. I hate to burst your little bubble, not yours, but people in general that think, oh, the good old days when Dan Rather was. All these people are full of shit. They've always been full of shit. And I am feeling real good right now. I'm starting to get tuned up.
Yeah, you're getting heat. This is like going to lunch with Josh.
I'm getting in my lane now. I am in my lane.
Well, let's stay in this lane then.
I think this episode will be shadow banned on. We don't have a following big enough yet for that sort of a thing.
We'll
but if we
get
ever
there.
got one, I think it would be shadow banned. Because people think there was a golden era, but there wasn't. So,
well,
I'll provide examples of that next time. I wasn't fully prepared to go deep in on a lot of these different things, but I just wanted to bring up lots of these things so you can go and, like we always do at the Terribly Vexed Podcast, I encourage people to go read these things for yourselves.
100%. Because
don't take our word for it.
Yeah. What's that? Well, I'm trying to think of it. What's the name of that damn movie? I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it. Well, the newscasters are getting pissed off at how the network's trying to network. There we go. All right. Go on.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's pretty good. It's got what's his name in it? The guy he's Bookman in Seinfeld, and he's a doctor in Curb. I think it's him. You know what? I'm probably wrong because I saw that movie 10, 15 years ago. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's in there in the Seinfeld show camp.
Gotcha.
But he's also a serious actor, obviously. And again,
the real deal.
It might not even be him.
Yeah.
But,
well, I'm just kind of looking at my notes here, and we're talking about the media stuff. So like the internet, as we know it today, as I've mentioned to you before, in like I probably sent you some texts. If you noticed, excuse me, sort of the walls are sort of closing in on the internet. Have you noticed this?
Oh, yeah.
The channels for which people can sort of communicate freely are beginning to disappear.
For sure.
Do you think that's just an accident?
Isn't
that things are sort of narrowing down to just a few?
You think it would start with Twitter? The big one was Twitter.
Well, I mean, Twitter does it, but it's not just Twitter. Obviously, it's every single one of them.
Right, but Twitter got Trump off? Twitter got Trump off.
The president.
Yeah, but I mean,
if you believe that,
you would
shit.
think though that you'd leave. I'm not pro-Trump. I'm not saying anything like that. But you'd think the president shouldn't be banned, no matter what he's saying, real, unless it's like obviously something
Well, it's all theater.
crazy.
It's all theater. It's all just a production for your amusement.
Yeah.
Can you believe that? They kicked the president off Twitter. What
That's
kind
true.
of world are we living in?
Alex Jones got kicked off.
Right. Anybody that's
It's. I hate to use the term slippery slope, but it's getting there.
right.
We're on it.
Yeah, it's it's part of it. It's by design
Yeah.
as well, because like before the internet, as the internet is now as we know it, it's a what was it called before it was the internet? It was ARPANET. Is that what it was called when it was first developed in the late '60s between
I have no clue.
universities? Right.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what it was called.
I think it was called ARPANET, and it was so it's been around since the late '60s in some form, right?
Yeah.
And it was developed by whom? Intelligence agencies once again.
Right.
So we started. What would it get? Like the internet started rolling out for the public in like the early to mid '90s, I guess. I think the earliest I kind of remember
I think
the
so.
internet was 93, 94.
Something like that. Yeah.
So that's basically kind of when it started going out to the public. It's becoming more and more obvious now that the internet has always been just the whole purpose of the internet is to corral people and to control and to observe and to collect data and to, like with Facebook and the LifeLog thing, which many people have talked about, noticed how LifeLog, which was that DARPA project, ended on the same day that Facebook began in 2004. Same month, same day. LifeLog's whole purpose was to essentially follow people from birth to death. And with Facebook, you had people now creating their own profiles. You don't have to guess anymore. They tell you what they like, what they don't like, who they talk to, who their family is. Everybody volunteers that information.
100%. That's why this whole conspiracy theory about the tracking devices and the COVID shots, they don't need them. Like that's such a huge thing. To me, that's a conspiracy.
Well, again, that's why that's could have been thrown out there to make it sound outlandish, to make it sound ridiculous, right?
Yeah, but I'm just like a guy I work with, a nut job about it.
Being tracked all the time.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We're being listened to
has
right
an
now.
iPhone, and 100%.
Yeah,
and I don't know. He just like he. You bring that point up though, and then you're an idiot for thinking that when you should be thinking about the government injecting you with 5G tracking chips.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like you hear a lot of these things, and I'm thoroughly convinced that they're being injected into the populace to make any sort of legitimate concern or question or just to be dismissed as outlandish and stupid.
Well,
so LifeLog was a project from DARPA, and it did end in Facebook was created at the same month and the same day in 2004. A lot of people have pointed this out. I shouldn't be telling anybody anything new that's listening to this, and is interested in conspiracy theories. But the conspiracy for that one is that Facebook became LifeLog and that it's run by the CIA. That's the conspiracy behind that. But there's lots of people and, people that are independent journalists and stuff and look at all these companies that fund and wealthy people that fund these things, these projects to get them going. They're all connected. One big happy family. You can see them over here. You see them over there. So there's definitely something to that. So you throw out some stupid shit like they're going to put a microchip up your ass. And now you don't have an argument because you sound like a quack. You see what I'm saying?
100%.
Another good example of that while we're on the subject is, and I think I sent this to you, Jeff Bezos' grandfather. You think these assholes
I didn't
just
send that to me.
started this shit in their garage? You really think that? And I'm not talking to you, as I'm looking at you.
And pointing at me.
And pointing at you.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about people out there that get these rags to riches stories with these guys and gals that they just started in their garage and they worked their way up and they saved their pennies.
They make it seem that way for sure.
Oh, absolutely. But like, we've said a lot of times with things, it takes decades to see what's actually what's transpired, what's going on. All this stuff just doesn't come out right away. Like when Amazon takes off as a business, and how much is Jeff Bezos worth now? $200 billion. You think you just get to be, that kind of wealth just off of your own hard work?
Just working hard.
Just working hard,
yeah,
man.
You have a dream.
Right.
You don't give up.
Exactly.
Yeah, because in this country, Josh, you can do whatever you put your mind
Right.
to.
Well, you can if you're a grandfather. In Jeff Bezos' example here, your grandfather was Lawrence Preston Geiss, who everyone called Preston. I'm going to be reading from my notes here a little bit. What's interesting about Lawrence was his background, where he worked, what he did early in his career. So he was... They like to paint him as like, he had a farm in Texas. They always had a farm in Texas, a ranch, But let's see, Congress of the United States. He was a manager at the Atomic Energy Commission, operated headquarters in Albuquerque, supervised the region's 26,000 employees at Los Alamos and Lawrence Livermore Laboratories. Okay, this is Jeff Bezos' grandfather. And before joining the AEC, Geiss, who hailed from Valley Wells, Texas, had worked on space technology and missile defense systems. Interesting.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting? Did you know that? Were you aware of that?
I had no idea.
And he did that for the agency I've already mentioned several times, DARPA. There's that agency again showing back up. Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. It's the research and development arm of the Department of Defense, and it was created in 1958. And he was a big shot at DARPA. So now let's put that in perspective, what Jeff Bezos has got going for him nowadays, where all these people, everybody around the world buys from Amazon. So now you can see what people are buying, and how important does that become in creating these profiles of the populace, of the serfs, of the peasants.
Yeah.
You know what they're getting. You know what they're buying. You know how often they're buying it. Everything's sort of being channeled through these, these pathways that have been created for us by the people that want this information about us.
It's just convenience, really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know. And Alexa.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and put a listening device in our house, right?
I heard they're doing something, Amazon. I forgot exactly. Some Amazon sidewalk or something like that, where it's if somebody's walking down the street with an Amazon phone next to a house that has an Alexa
kind
in
of a situation.
It lets automatically share the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, that's where a lot of this stuff is going. I mean, I think it was Chicago had like the smart city thing that they were trying to do. That was a Google related thing. But what you also see too is a lot of these people, these executives, your Googles, your Facebooks, your Amazons, they bounce around. Your Silicon Valley stuff, that's all just military intelligence stuff now. All those people that came from and Silicon Valley and the way that's exploded and the way they kind of run everything now, that's all military intelligence. There's these people. It's not private sector, is what I'm saying.
Right.
And all of these people kind of bounce around on these different. I was listening to something just a couple of days ago where they were talking about this lady Regina Dugan, I think is her name. And if you look at like her CV on
any
her
relation
Wiki
to
page,
Hacksaw Jim?
What's that?
Any relation to Hacksaw Jim?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's her dad. I think it's her dad.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
She's I don't know if she's at Facebook still, but like you look at her, resume, and she's just bounced around to all these different companies. Google, I think, Facebook for sure. And she's got a couple of very interesting speeches she gives, kind of like TED Talk kind of things, where she's on a stage talking about something.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of the future of technology. Oh, she also was at a little agency that you may have heard of from just a second ago, known as DARPA. Again, she was at DARPA.
Huh.
She's the 19th director of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. She was. So DARPA, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Facebook, LifeLog, another DARPA project. Are we starting to kind of see where this is going, kind of what's happening here?
I don't know what you mean.
Ignorance is bliss.
Wow.
And you mentioned this to somebody, they have no idea what you're talking about.
Well, me. In this example, it's me. Yeah,
right now.
That's why I'm just letting you go.
Right
I'm learning right along with everybody else.
Well, I think we wanted to do that last time where one of us would have some stuff, and we'd just sort of be telling the other person, right?
And
our little formula here that we've got going.
This is what is happening right now.
But, a lot of this is new to me, too. So it's not like, like I hadn't heard of her until just a couple of days ago. And I'm not saying that she's this particular person, this Regina Dugan lady is, calling all the shots. She's probably not. She's probably just a lieutenant in this thing. She does what she's told.
Do you think she knows what she's doing, though? Like, do you think she's there knowing what her greater goal is? Or do you think she's just...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You don't become a director of DARPA and not have some sort of a bead on what's happening and why. So, but I assure you, they don't have your best interests in mind. Okay? They don't. But here, just real quick, I'm just going to go through some of the institutions. And again, this is just on Wikipedia. You can find this for yourself. Facebook, Google, as I said, DARPA, RedX Defense, I'm not sure what that is, Dugan Ventures, NASA, and Caltech. So there's just some of her, but just, and of course Google, Facebook, Amazon, all these things, which according to this, she's not part of, but I find it hard to believe that, in some capacity, she's not talking to the other executives or directors or engineers or whatever the hell they call themselves, and making decisions as to where they're going to go, because they all seem to be working together. There's all these DARPA connections. There's all these intelligence connections. It's just one big happy family.
Yeah.
It's like I was saying to Steven in a little conversation we were having last week. It's all one big happy family. You see them in everything. Once you start looking into who financed this, who paid for that.
Right.
Which would take me into another part of this too, which was the NGOs, non-governmental organizations.
Okay.
And these think tanks, they show up in these freaking things too. Fucking things too. I'll do it. I'm doing it today, man. I'm going for it, baby.
I dig it. So what now? What is this? NGO.
NGOs, right.
Like such as...
So I pulled this from another book that I'm reading right now. This is one that Jason sent me.
All right.
And it's on the CIA. Goes into Operation Phoenix, Operation Condor, which took place in South America. Operation Phoenix was in Vietnam era, just to kind of give you a time frame when that was running. Just more of the same old. CIA goes in, install a dictator, disrupt some shit, mess up an economy, kill a bunch of people with impunity. Anyway, I got off. What were we talking about? NGOs, right.
Yeah.
Non-governmental organizations.
Right.
And they're basically just organizations that are not supposed to be attached to the government, but kind of secretly are, right?
Okay.
So it'd be like people that are billionaires that are loaded. The think tank sort of situation's a little bit different. But like NGOs or organizations, I guess you would say like maybe the WHO, the World Health Organization.
Yeah. Not the band.
Which you've heard a lot about recently because of the
WHO
pandemic.
LOL. Oh, I saw that face.
Making a face here.
The pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to believe because they dictate a lot of what we're supposed to do as a society when something like this happens, and then they start sort of throwing in their other things, their other agenda, bullet points, things they want to sort of do with a society, which is kind of what's happening along with it, right? But so the point of those is that they're not supposed to be attached to the government, but they kind of are. It's kind of like
Yeah.
movies that are financed, by the Pentagon. You're like, why? Why are
Right.
these being financed? Well, there must be a reason for it if tax dollars are being used to make a movie, right? And just the connections between NGOs and the government, and people would have to, sort of dig into those. I probably have some as examples here in all of my notes, but I can't go to them right this second.
Hey, it's okay. You're going. So,
I got a burp.
oh, I thought you. Okay.
I wasn't about to vomit right then. I was just burping away from the microphone.
Professional.
That I was
Get
so
some-
upset I was going to vomit.
Let me get some cough buttons installed.
Is that what they are?
Yeah, little buttons. Radio guys have them. They hit it, and but you can't hear it. It just shuts the mic off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not quite there yet.
Nope. So burp away.
But, I would just say people need to read up on these NGOs and, other government agencies that are so prominent.
Yeah.
You see them displayed nowadays. People that are giving these talks about where technology should go and, what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. The Great Reset, you hear that horse shit right now is going on.
Explain that to me.
The Great Reset?
Yeah, I know 100% what it is, but the listeners don't. So go ahead.
Actually, I don't know exactly what it means.
I don't either.
But you have heard about it recently, right?
I have not heard that ever, as far as I know.
Well, that Klaus Schwab guy was talking about it, and you've heard the new normal, right?
Yeah.
You've heard the new normal,
Yeah.
that term.
Mm-hmm.
You notice how all of these presidents and prime ministers and stuff kind of say the same thing. This is what we need to do now, the new normal, the Great Reset.
That's okay.
Changing things in a way that they see that they should be changed. I mean, they're just passing along the message.
Right. So okay. All right. I didn't know
They're
if that
not
was
really
like
the ones making the decisions, I don't think.
No. Usually
The
those
ones
guys,
you see on the TV anyway.
That's what. Yeah. Usually those guys are not. They're just like the
Talking heads.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's like a news anchor. They're not
Right.
reporting anything. I mean, they're not actually doing the investigative journalism. They're just reading the teleprompter.
Yeah.
Like local news goofballs, like these, local idiots on local television. They're just reading and collecting a paycheck. They're not
right.
digging into anything. Like, is Don Dare still around?
I was
restaurant guy?
I have no clue what you're talking about.
You're not familiar with Don Dare?
No. Don
Channel 6, I guess. He was the guy that went to restaurants and gave
Don Dare.
Don Dare.
I love that name. Like Dale DeBone. You familiar with Dale DeBone?
Nope.
All right.
You're not familiar with Don Dare?
Google Dale DeBone.
I will. Later.
Yeah. You should. Everybody should.
So yeah, non-governmental organizations, very important.
Yeah. So you said there was Operation Phoenix and Condor.
Yeah. That's on that book that I was I'm audiobooking right now. And it's pretty good. I actually had Phoenix on the list, the big list that I gave you.
Mm-hmm.
It's I've added to quite a bit recently, actually.
Need to get an updated version.
Updated version, which I'll need to get to you.
Yeah.
Added Condor. But Phoenix was just, like I said, it's, I don't know how many people were killed, but lots in Vietnam.
This is okay.
People that were communists, I guess.
Yeah.
But not necessarily. They, lots of intellectuals, people like maybe you and me that talk about these things openly in a platform such as this that goes out to people. They were, abducted in the middle of the night and assassinated or thrown into a prison cell or tortured, Actually, like I said, Operation Condor, which took place in Central and South America, mostly South America, I think. It's like 6 or 7 countries that was involved in that. That was basically the same thing under a new name, But
so let me ask you this, just to sort of change the topic a little bit.
Just something a little peppier, a little happier.
If you had to pick a favorite conspiracy theory, what do you think it would be? Would it be like one of your, cover-up conspiracy, an assassination conspiracy, alien conspiracy?
What do you mean, like one that I may, if I were to tell people that are new to this world that may be listening to this podcast and saying, where should I start? Because I have had people in conversations already.
There you go. If you had to say you're an expert on one.
I'm not an expert on any of them. But I wouldn't attempt to say I'm an expert on any of them.
The most knowledgeable.
Gosh, I spent a lot of time on JFK, but would I say I'm the most knowledgeable? No, absolutely not. But I've got a pretty good idea, just going off a lot of good researchers that spent many years working on that, to say that I've got a pretty good idea of what happened there.
So you think it was?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just a guy, just a dude who was mad.
Yeah, it's one guy.
One guy
in a
window.
Yeah,
that's all it was. No, absolutely not. That's absurd.
Well, do you want to get into it now, or you want to save that for like a whole special episode?
Oh well, if we're good, I'm definitely not prepared to go deep into JFK, but
right,
because like you were asking me.
That's another one of those that my knowledge on it is like a mile wide, inch deep.
JFK?
Yeah. But that's my knowledge with everything, really.
Yeah,
I started this whole thing.
And maybe on that one, 7 inches deep, 8 inches deep.
Okay. Just
because
pockets.
There's still a lot. I can listen to an interview or an old interview or a podcast, and I'll learn something new about it, something I didn't know.
Yeah.
So, but even still, got a pretty good idea of, I feel pretty comfortable about what happened there. And the official story, as usual, the Warren Commission, horse shit, like all those commissions and hearings and committees. When somebody has to go testify at a hearing, if nothing comes of it, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
You know what the church committee is too, right? By the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
I love it.
Yeah. What is it?
You're a conspiracy theorist podcaster.
No. See, this is what I was saying. I started this whole thing. You made it sound like I was way more knowledgeable than I really am, especially with this whole side of it. I just know like the headlines. I know. I've read a lot of headlines. A hell of a lot of headlines.
Stop after the, yeah.
Then I start reading them. All right.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm going to go watch some Yellowstone.
That's the point of this, Justin, is that we're all learning here.
I know, and that's what I like about it. You are teaching right now.
Yeah.
Not just the listeners, but moi as well.
Well, good.
Yeah. So what were you saying?
I don't know.
The church report?
Church committee? It was basically just a committee that was put together by Frank Church in the mid-'70s to investigate the intelligence agencies, which, by the way, a funny thing about that, it was, like I said, mid-'70s, I think 75-ish, somewhere in there. Funny thing about that was when that came about, nobody knew the NSA even existed until the church committee, from what I've read. So there's an agency that's sole purpose is to surveil us, which obviously the CIA and everybody else does too, but that's supposed to be what their main objective is. Nobody even knew that had existed for decades at that point.
That seems like one you'd want to keep quiet.
Right.
So,
because their sole purpose is to investigate and surveil their own population of the country that they're in, which is us right now. And they are. Snowden was NSA, right? Didn't Snowden, wasn't he a low guy on the totem pole?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I know the name. I know that all this
is why we got to bring in a third party.
This whole side of it. I'm just sitting back and letting you go.
He was a contractor or something, right? And that's why he's, he was basically just talking about the NSA and all of his stuff, what they're listening to, how they're compiling data and watching everything you do and recording everything in data centers and collection centers all over the country. That was Snowden's thing.
Yeah. That is my knowledge. But you obviously know more.
I don't. But
Well,
I think that's who he was. I think that's what his deal was with the NSA.
Yeah.
Point being, we didn't even know they existed for many years. The American people.
Yeah. Well, so I need to brush up, obviously. And you're saying bring in a third person.
I've got
Maybe a
couple
fourth.
of people that are ready to go.
I work with a guy who I want to bring in just to let you two have at it. Not argue, just talk. I would just sit back, have a diet soda, and listen to you two go. And it would be fantastic.
Yeah, and
So,
you know a couple of the dudes that I want to bring in. Just
yeah.
gotta do it.
I
Gotta
know.
get the okay from you, and we'll make it happen.
Oh, don't put it all on me.
Just as I'm looking at this here, because I wanted to get to it a second ago. Operation Condor, just so you know. And again, it's taken many years. And actually, there was a trial in Rome in 2019 that they were actually put a couple of these people that were part of Operation Condor on trial and convicted them from their crimes that they committed. These were basically just hit squads running just wild and crazy through South America, all known to the CIA and us at the time. So they were basically allowed to do the things that they did. And I think from what I've read, the estimates are that roughly 60 to 100,000 people were killed in these operations. Okay?
Yeah.
60 to 100,000 people were murdered in cold blood
Right.
in Operation Condor, and that's probably a low estimate.
Mm-hmm.
Many hundreds of thousands more were jailed, all because they didn't have the same view. They didn't toe the party line. So if you had a dissenting view, these were known as subversives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you questioned something, you didn't like what something was due, maybe you started an organization at your college or wherever, guess what? Your ass was getting nabbed in the middle of the night,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot of the times what they did. And I just wanted to read, this was going on in like Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Paraguay, Uruguay, and was supported by the United States of America.
Wow. Look at that.
Training and stuff was done by the CIA. You know, these groups were trained by us to go down and do these things. And sort of essentially this kind of operated late 60s to the 80s, roughly. That's kind of the time period. And so, like I said, just recently, a couple of years ago, already still having trials about this stuff, convicting some of these guys. This would have been like Pinochet was a dictator,
Yeah.
and he was allowed to just basically do whatever he wanted. And that's
When did you say this? In the 80s? Is that what you said?
60s to the 80s.
60s
so
to the 80s,
really
okay.
running hot in the 70s.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, this all kind of falls under the realm of conspiracy theory just because most people don't know about this history.
Right.
Which, by the way, I'm just going to mention it here. Stumbled across another good podcast, and it's called History or Conspiracy. And it's a lot of old interviews and stuff. Really good. I would recommend people locating that podcast and listening to it, because a lot of the shit that was going on in the 60s and the 70s and the 50s is still happening today, where people can start investigating something, looking into something, and their life gets ruined. They get discredited. Even public people, personalities, people that had like talk shows and stuff. One that I was looking into and stumbled across with that podcast was a guy by the name of Mort Saul. And, he started looking into the JFK assassination.
Mort
Saul, yeah.
Wow.
He was a comedian.
That sounds like a funny name.
And it's his real name.
Yeah. That's
not his showbiz name, just his name. You should watch some of his interviews and stuff and listen to some of his
I have to.
on YouTube. But this was an interview. This one in particular was from the late 60s, just prior to Jim Garrison's the trial for Clay Shaw was about to take place, because I think he mentions it. He's like, yeah, I think that trial's about to kick off in a week or two or something like that. So sounds good audio. It's very easy to listen to. Some of them to listen to, it's very hard to hear, so you kind of get turned off when you're trying to listen to somebody, an old crappy interview from the 60s. But this one was great. And just since I'm talking about him now, he had a interview show, had a talk show kind of a situation, or a late night show. Mm-hmm. And after the assassination took place, he got into it. He felt he was being lied to and started bringing a lot of people on his show. And ultimately, his career was ruined, as tends to happen. They try to defame you,
Right.
And that's what happened to Mort. I mean, he continued on, and eventually I guess his career sort of picked up steam again when other people, most people started to see like, hey, maybe something's not right with this. Maybe, he wasn't. Yeah, maybe it is kind of odd that all of these people that were trying to change things in the 60s for the better, civil rights leaders and things, were all assassinated within like a 5 to 7 year time period.
Yeah.
Maybe they weren't all just killed by lone gunmen. Maybe there's something to it,
Mm-hmm.
He actually went down and helped Jim Garrison too. He actually helped on his investigation when it was taking place there, and sort of joined his team. In some of his interviews, it sounded like he was trying to, well, I went down there and I helped him, do this or that. Like he's almost kind of trying to take credit for some of his stuff. And I think Mort's actually still alive. So, but, anyway.
Yeah.
Very interesting interview. History or Conspiracy Podcast.
I was just going to ask what it was called again. I discovered a new podcast as well. It's more along the comedy lines, but they talk about a lot of this stuff that we're talking about too. Have you ever heard of this? The Sofa King Podcast. Never heard of it, but apparently it's pretty popular.
Huh.
But it's really good. Like they talked about a lot of different conspiracies and even just weird stuff. Like Nicolas Cage was an episode. And there's a lot of stuff I didn't know. Steven Seagal was an episode. A lot of stuff I didn't know about that.
Steven Seagal's a creep.
Yep, I learned that.
That's the big one about Steven Seagal, is he's a real creep and he's a liar.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've listened to a lot of things about him, not from them, but
right.
I'm assuming they're pulling from what I've probably listened to as well.
I'm sure. Yeah. But it's very interesting. All their podcasts. And it's very funny too. But they brought one, speaking of conspiracies, they brought one up. Have you ever looked into the Denver airport conspiracy?
Yeah.
Like really looked into it and all, like the blue horse and all that?
Mile wide, inch deep on that one for sure.
Well, we got to do something on that.
Underground base, I know that's part of it.
It's in the shape of a swastika part, like it's one of the things. Underground.
I've been through that airport.
Me too.
And that mural is very weird.
It's gone now, though, apparently.
What?
They got rid of it.
Because everybody was like, what is this freaking thing?
I think they said something like one of the art director or whoever died or they got replaced, and then the other guy was like, Jesus, let's get rid of this thing.
It doesn't look like something you should see in an airport.
It was frightening. I looked it up, and it was like...
I remember walking past it, and not even knowing at the time that there was supposed to be anything attached to it, but just walking past it and being like, what in the hell is this?
Yeah.
Why would you paint this in an airport? Why would this be? Isn't it supposed to be like fun, happy, I mean, flying's already miserable as hell anyway. Yeah. So maybe like an uplifting scene, not like soldiers of death marching across
like children dying and weird stuff.
It's a weird installation for an airport.
Yeah.
And the horse is weird too because it's got those.
It's a giant blue horse with glowing red eyes.
It's weird no matter which way you look at it.
And the guy that built it, the guy that designed it, was putting it together. The head fell off the horse while they were putting it together. Killed the artist that made it.
What the hell?
Yeah.
That's all so weird.
Gargoyles. They went way over budget, supposedly, on building. And instead of just being like, forget it, or let's demolish, we'll start new. They, you know what? We'll just bury it, and we'll build on top of it. So all those things are still there, underground. Like, that is fact.
Really?
Yeah. They do, like, luggage transport and stuff. Like, but really, what's under there? Who knows? But
underground base.
Yep. Underground something. Safe house for the rich, the elite.
Yeah.
High altitude. So they get up there and they got their own little place up there. But they went into it a lot deeper than I've never really looked into it. And then I started to after I listened to that podcast. And damn, what a weird place. So it just goes to show, is what I'm saying. There's a lot of stuff you never even think to look into because it sounds ridiculous. The Denver airport conspiracy. It's crazy.
Yeah, and, is it legit? But it gets things like that could get grouped into,
Right.
It could be another example of that. I'm always curious about where these things originate from, know?
Yeah.
I mean, just walking past that mural, that painting, that was always associated with it and things that I had seen online. So gave some sort of validity to maybe there is something weird about this place. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
But, yeah.
It's a crazy, crazy world we're living in is what we're trying to get at, I think.
Yeah, and it's it's lies. It's lies and treachery.
Yeah.
But going back to that.
I'm sorry, I got.
No. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about conspiracy theory. So, but things that aren't, was the Operation the Condor thing in the Phoenix. They had when they would get rid of people, they had these things called death flights. These are just some interesting facts about Operation Condor.
Yeah, let's hear them.
And they would load people up on a plane and just drop them over the rainforest or over a mountain range or out in the ocean. All the dissidents.
You just said you didn't want to get off.
Right.
Just no.
If
no
they
thanks.
if they didn't just take you up and throw you off the plane, and they had regular flights, by the way. They did this twice a week. Or even more. I think I read twice a week. They would tell the people, which is kind of pertinent nowadays, I guess, because they would tell the people that, I guess they were going to be sending them somewhere else, getting them out of the country because of their activities.
Yeah.
And I guess they would, vaccinate them is what they told them they were going to be doing.
Yeah.
But they would basically just dope them up.
Wow.
And then once everybody was fully doped but still alive, all they had to do was just throw them off the planes.
Mm-hmm.
So they would tell all these people, yeah, we're shipping you out. You're being, I guess taken to another country. And, we're getting rid of you here. And they would just vaccinate them and then just chuck them out of the plane over the ocean. And also, like I said, the jungles. So
you're getting taken care of either way.
Without a parachute is the point I'm trying to make here.
Right.
And they did this regularly, routinely. But they also tortured the hell out of them, too. And I was just looking at some of my notes here. I was trying to find, because I'd actually sent all this to Steven, too, in that conversation we were having this past week about this, because they did a lot of torture. And that torture's, again, this is basically the same operation that was run in Vietnam. So this is a different name, Condor, Phoenix. They did the same thing. But they would rape them, And the author of that book, I think his name is something Valentine, Douglas Valentine. He talks about a lot of that and goes into detail. I'm only 9 chapters in, and it's quite depressing.
Yeah. What's it called?
This is the book.
Yeah.
Doc.
I'm sorry. I thought you had it right there.
I do somewhere.
Don't worry about it. You know what? We'll post it in the old show notes.
Yeah, it's right here. CIA is organized crime, how illegal operations corrupt America and the world. Douglas Valentine.
There you go.
So I did have it handy. But, yeah, so that was a couple of those things. Just going over the interesting connections there. There's lots of those, though. There's so many of those. We couldn't possibly get all that into one episode of this podcast.
No.
I think a lot of the documents about that were retrieved from something they eventually called the Archives of Terror. which had to do with Operation Condor.
Hmm.
And I want to think that was one of those situations where they were sort of like a place was broken into or something was stolen again, and they just sort of uncovered a lot of these things, or, the operation had been dead essentially for a few years, and journalists started prying, started digging into it.
Yeah.
And then that's how they found what would ultimately become the Archives of Terror. They just seemed to keep notes on all the murdering and slaughtering that they did.
Jesus. I don't know, you think you'd keep that stuff a little more guarded.
Yeah, and I think these were found in like some obscure police station somewhere in a country that, was again associated with it, but I'd have to read into that exactly. But I think it was basically something like that.
It's ridiculous. How they lose stuff like that, or they just don't, like the moon landing. And there was something with the original video of it is
the film
gone.
Is gone.
The film's gone.
Yeah.
How the hell do you lose that?
It's supposed to be like the biggest achievement of mankind.
What the hell?
And you've lost.
And that,
which is what causes these things to happen.
Just gonna say that feeds right into the. Is that what you're talking about? Conspiracies? The fact that the original's lost. Oh yeah, it was hoax then, because you don't have the.
Did you not care?
Yeah.
About the original?
Yeah, you'd think that'd be like a national treasure.
Yeah, you would think. So really, that's what makes people question what's going on.
Yeah.
A lot of times, because there's that just seems like a really stupid mistake. You send somebody to the moon.
Yeah.
And then you lose the footage.
I know. It's like a stupid mistake. Like you would expect that at like Best Buy or something, but the government. You'd think the government is like NASA.
We like to think that they have the best of the best.
Exactly.
Of the best.
Sir.
Working
with
on.
honors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Working on these things, but it's I like to say that a conspiracy, something like killing the president or something, can't happen because too many people would know, and that's bullshit. One thing you have to know when you start researching like intelligence agencies, of which there are many, compartmentalization is a huge thing. Okay, so like you can have a lot of these people that run things, operations, projects. They essentially are off on their own, and they may have someone above them in a very important position that sort of protects them and allows them to do their job, whatever their job is. So it's like plausible deniability, I guess, where if somebody has to go and talk on something because he or she is the CIA director or the director of some agency, they have to go to a hearing and give a talk. Did you know this was taking place if something ever leaked out or whatever? They can honestly say that they didn't know.
Right.
I think there's some of that goes on. I think there's definitely a lot of cases where they don't want to know.
Right. 100%.
So like, I think a good example of that is, I've actually got two good examples of that. One is the USS Liberty when that was attacked by Israel. Okay, so like the 6-Day War was going on. Pretty much that was an operation between Mossad and probably James Angleton, who you should look up some shit on this guy. He looks like you're just, typical 60s, 70s, dead-eyed CIA, officer sort of character, super thin,
James Angleton?
James Angleton. Yeah, see if you can find a picture
I'm gonna look him up right now.
But like he was and could have been, I'm not saying that he was, sort of directed from the top to do what he did in planning this operation to sink the USS Liberty and bring us into the 6-Day War.
Yeah, he was very, very Bond villainish.
Very.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was a huge piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like so many others. Because, like when the ship was attacked and stuff, they did everything in their power, and they knew that it was our ship and we're supposed to be allies. And if you know, we're supposed to be allies with Israel.
Yeah.
And but the point was to sink the ship and blame it on Egypt and then bring us into the 6-day war that was happening. Didn't happen because they couldn't sink the ship. They tried torpedo boats. They hit it with, I think they even hit it with napalm. They flew out with helicopters. They were going to have like a whole crew of mercenaries basically go onto the ship and kill everybody on the crew. But the sailors, a couple of them, as they were getting fired at by the fighter jets, were able to establish communications long enough to get out an SOS. Just long enough to get an SOS because they had already hit their masts with their communications and stuff, and they were just able to get out an SOS to the fleet, which was 400 or 500 miles away. And they were going to scramble some jets, send them over. Jets got called back, I think, by McNamara, who was the guy who was kind of in charge of the whole Vietnam debacle.
Mm-hmm.
And Johnson was, of course, president at the time. And, they just protected Israel in the operation as it failed. So that's a good example of, I guess it was basically a false flag. People are listening to this probably are familiar with the term false flag, what a false flag attack is.
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor could have arguably been a false flag. There's lots of examples of those too, where you just basically, you don't necessarily have to be part of whatever the operation is, but you can just let it happen.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But it's theorized that James Angleton was, one of the masterminds of the USS Liberty attack.
Mm-hmm.
And another example of that, what were we talking about earlier? Was the two examples? There was just going to be like the USS Liberty is one, and then I was talking about the CIA and this guy by the name of Sidney Gottlieb, which I hadn't mentioned earlier, but it was basically just the syphilis, or he was the MK Ultra guy. But that falls into the realm of conspiracy theory too. A lot of people don't even know about the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, and the fact that they actually did the same thing in Guatemala. So the Guatemala syphilis experiments were also, all these things fall into the category of conspiracy theory.
Right.
And that's dangerous. But, Sidney Gottlieb and stuff was an interesting character too. He was the CIA MK Ultra mind control guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a crazy story.
Yeah.
The fact that actually, and that's real, known.
But again,
fact.
If you were to bring it up in a restaurant, the room would go quiet.
Yeah.
Because you'd sound like a nut job.
Yeah. But
he actually testified to the church committee too. And he was allowed to give a pseudonym. They didn't even have to give his real name so he could hide his identity.
What was it? I don't know if you had it. I was hoping it was something.
No,
something humorous.
I don't have
Jack me off or something like that.
No, I don't have his name handy here. I don't think.
Hey, it doesn't matter. I thought you had it right there. You were looking at it.
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Well, these stupid pages. Every time I try to bring them up, they retirement. Joseph Scheider. Joseph Scheider.
All right.
Yeah. So October 7th, 1975, Gottlieb testified before the church committee under an alias. See, that's an example of someone being protected also. I've read that he was protected, so he was allowed to basically do what he did. And his mission with the MK Ultra program, or mind control program, was to, and I think I read this right, quote, learn how to destroy a human mind.
Yeah, and that's what that whole thing was, right? And then the what was the end game of that?
Of MK Ultra?
Yeah, I just did a whole thing about it. I just
mind control.
That was it? I thought there was a whole...
but that goes a lot of ways.
Right. I don't know. I forget I even said anything. Again. That
goes a lot of ways into what you could do with that. Make an assassin.
Yeah. There was something.
The objective was to do that.
Damn it.
I think certain people would probably say that they never fully achieved that, But I don't believe that, really. I don't believe that they weren't able to learn how to control somebody's mind.
Right.
Did they learn how to destroy a mind? Absolutely.
100%.
Because a couple of the books that I've read where they talk about, they were dosing people with LSD,
Mm-hmm.
and they would dose prisoners.
Yeah.
And use prisoners. And I think he had dosed people upwards of 70 times over the course of a week. Okay.
Yeah.
That destroys the human mind.
Yeah.
And he was allowed
large
to operate.
amounts too, right? Like over the recommended amount. They would shoot them up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So they were.
Well, that was the whole point of the whole thing.
Right.
And then other methods that he used, which I'm not completely familiar with, but other than the fact that I think also at one point they purchased all of the LSD that existed on the earth at one time.
Yeah. Also, I read stories they would, as you would at work, put salt in somebody's coffee as a little prank. They would prank each other with their LSD. So the lab guys would be fucking freaking out.
With their various drugs,
Yeah.
cocktails.
Funny prank. He's losing his mind right now.
Yeah, he got really good at developing poisons, too.
Yeah.
He developed poisons for, I guess, agents that could be in the field that could possibly be captured or interrogated,
Mm-hmm.
that they could, because I've read that they talked about certain ways, like coins and stuff, they could hide them insides of coins, and just minuscule amounts could kill you in minutes. And these were a lot of poisons that Sidney Gottlieb had developed in his research. So, I mean, he's like pulling bladders out of little critters and things, and enzymes and things that,
Wow.
well, it was all him. He was the mastermind of all that stuff. And, was allowed to do this for decades. So I think, says he retired from the CIA in 1972. Think this MK Ultra thing started in the 50s. So ran for at least about 20 years. And again, that falls into the realm of conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. This guy existed. You can Google him, or you can DuckDuckGo him. You can read his wiki page. He was very secretive, obviously, very private.
Yeah.
And, wanted to hide. I think there was a famous sort of MK Ultra file burning party they had. I mean, we don't know, obviously, the full extent which he operated and the things that he did to people and the operations that he ran. But I think he also shows up in Tom O'Neill's book, Chaos, or at least people that worked with him and had something to do with the MK Ultra program, because that, again, is the whole premise of the Chaos book, was that, Manson was, in some way part of that program because he was visiting a doctor in San Francisco that had something to do with it.
Yeah.
Again, it's this, you want to, you don't want to do guilt by association, but if this guy's running this, I mean, let's cut the shit here.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm just trying to look up like a nice, what's a good top 10? Let's go top 5 conspiracy theories. So I'm trying to find here. Just like something.
It could be anything, right?
Yeah. What are the most popular?
Bigfoot.
See, that's what I was going to ask you earlier. Is Bigfoot a conspiracy?
Yeah, but it's always talked about in conspiracy circles. Like in the world of conspiracy theory, Bigfoot existing is one of them.
It's like Nessie. Would that be a conspiracy?
Yeah, I mean, all these things kind of fall into that category of you can't prove it or nobody has yet.
I think with a conspiracy, to me, it feels like there's got to be somebody has to benefit and is trying to hide or control something.
A cover up.
There you go. But like Bigfoot, to me, that's just like I don't know, like just a odd thing, but nobody's really trying to cover it up, or
no, they're not trying to cover it up, but it's just whether or not it's actually it's real.
Yeah,
whether Bigfoot exists.
All right.
Verifiable versus non-verifiable.
There we go.
That's what I've got in my notes.
Yeah, there you go.
Textbook definition: a conspiracy theory is an explanation for an event or situation that invokes a conspiracy by sinister, powerful groups.
Okay.
Often political in motivation. Quote, when other explanations are more probable. They want to throw in Occam's razor,
Yeah.
when you talk about a conspiracy.
What's that? The simplest thing is probably the...
Yeah, is the problem-solving principle that entities should not be multiplied without necessity, or more simply, the simplest explanation is usually the right one.
Okay.
That's one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It was just a guy, that was pissed off and wanted to shoot the president in the head and just got a rifle, a $25 rifle from the 1940s.
He was a military sharpshooter.
Yeah. He wasn't, but okay. They want to say all these things.
He wasn't.
He defected to Russia, which he did, married a Russian girl, came back over here, paid for by the government, by the way. He was,
Yeah.
Let's just ignore all of that stuff. You can't even go down. Okay. So, I would tell people right now, you have questions about what's going on now. I would say go and dig into the past and start with the JFK assassination. You've had 6 decades worth of people researching it to give you lots of good information.
Yeah.
And I would say you could even just sort of start with looking at Lee Harvey Oswald first, because they like to portray these lone nut characters as goofballs, idiots. He wasn't. He wasn't just a goofball and an idiot and a clown. He worked in intelligence early on in his military career. Hard to say what he thought was going on that day, if he was even there.
Oh.
What operation he may have thought he was part of. Maybe he thought he was there to protect the president in some capacity. Maybe he thought he was infiltrating a group that was trying to kill the president, and he was the good guy. One thing's for certain, he didn't fire a shot that day.
Didn't even fire a shot.
More than likely, no.
Okay.
But, how he got the job at, that factory there, or not factory, but that warehouse, the timing of all these things, I would definitely tell people to go down the JFK rabbit hole.
Yeah.
If you're new to conspiracy theory, start there, because it's going to tell you so much about the way things work in your government and in the world.
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe didn't just OD, okay? These stories are all such bullshit. They're such, we've had so much time now to look back and say, she was kind of banging all these Kennedy boys, and,
Yeah. About Princess Diana?
That's another one.
Yep. It's a big one.
I would say they probably whacked her just because they felt that she was maybe running her mouth a little bit too much,
Yeah.
And I don't think they liked who she was associating with, her boyfriend. What was his name?
I don't remember. I haven't even read
the
up
billionaire
on
guy.
Yeah.
I think that was a problem too.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely start with the JFK, assassination. Go into the past. A lot of things have come to light over the years, and
shit has come to light.
Has come to light. That's from Big Lebowski, right?
Oh yeah.
New information.
Yeah. A lot of ins, a lot of outs.
Yep.
Would OJ be a conspiracy?
Probably not.
It wouldn't. Nobody was covering anything up there.
It's not. He wasn't really in a position of real prominence to change anything in regards to John F. Kennedy was the president. I think he may have actually been the last president too, or the last one in recent history. We'll say the last 120 or so years that was got inside and legitimately tried to stop things.
Yeah.
And sort of started to resist, to his detriment.
Well,
would be my guess. So,
yeah. My whole thing with the JFK, I don't know what I'm talking about. Forget it. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No.
Your whole thing with it is what?
No, it's stupid.
How many books have you consumed on the JFK? First, let me ask you this. How many books have you consumed on the
actual books?
Yeah. Where
it's got to be
where somebody has spent years researching the topic, interviews, hundreds if not thousands, devoted their life to it and written a book.
Well,
how many have you read personally?
Over the years, I don't know, probably close to zero. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing because, like I said, as you go down that JFK rabbit hole, there's authors that they toe the party line and give you the official story. Which is just
with those that type of book, I get very, very
nonfiction.
Well, some nonfiction's all right, but I don't know. It seems like it's very one-sided for sure, which it is. And then I just get, I don't want to say bored, because I'm not bored by it. I just find myself I get to the end of the page, and I'm thinking about what's for dinner, or whatever. They can never hold my attention.
I'm thinking about what's for dinner right now.
Well, me too. I am a moron when it comes to reading books about stuff like that. I'm more of a documentary. My eyeballs and ears take it in way better than.
Well, that's why audiobooks are so good now.
That's
podcasts,
because
you have so many people that are doing good podcasts.
Yeah,
and like us, and sort of breaking down all the information and giving you the key points.
Yeah,
things you really need to know. Because as you read a book, you gotta kind of go through all that stuff, and it isn't necessarily important to the bigger picture. So you have to kind of dig through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't necessarily want to do that. Attention spans have been certainly sort of, that's probably by design too. Yeah. Everything's got to be given to you in like a few seconds, or you don't give a shit about it, whatever it is.
Let me tell you, they have gotten me with that for sure.
You're there
when it comes to reading, yeah. But hey, what are you gonna do, huh? That's what you're here for. You're here, so you do the reading, and I'll ask dumb questions.
I do the reading.
What do you think?
I do it all. You're the comic relief. We established this long ago.
I've been failing one time after another on this thing.
So yeah, like we jump around. We're jumping around a little bit here. I have these. I tried to make like a bullet point sort of a thing, but then I'm looking at the bullet points that I put together. It was like 3 months ago, so it's way off from what I've been reading now and the way I kind of wanted to design this thing the way I wanted it to go, or way
I'm sorry.
Keep it on track. It's okay. But much earlier in the thing, we had mentioned talking about like NGOs, but also just like other like think tanks. And did I ever send you anything on Club of Rome? Did you ever read anything on that?
You sent it to me,
but
I was at work.
However,
and then by the time I got home, I forgot all about it.
Oh, fuck. Son of a bitch!
You did. Hey, you did your part. It's me. That is not. But I mean, what is it?
See, there you go. Just under its description on Wikipedia, it says non-profit NGO. Once again, NGO being non-governmental organization, but it's not. That's don't believe that. In fact, when it says NGO, just know that it is a GO. Basically, because their funding and their money. Always follow the money, Yeah. And this one was created in 1968. The point of talking about the Club of Rome and others like it, because there are so many, you wonder, like, this one's, was created by, like, David Rockefeller, among others. See some other names here. Alexander King, not familiar with him. I think we're all familiar with David Rockefeller and the Rockefellers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sandra Dixon, Dr. Manfelia Raphael. I'm going to butcher these names. Point being, this was created in the late 60s. And you wonder, is it like I think there's a lot of money people behind it, Rockefeller being one of the money people, but they put scientists on their payroll. Okay? So like a non-governmental organization is created. It's got scientists on its panel. It's like a think tank. And then they ultimately, later down the road, like they wrote a couple of books, published a few books. One in 72 or one in the 70s after they had been around for a few years. And I think their main thing was on overpopulation, global warming. The conspiracy behind this particular group would be that they sort of invented climate change and global warming, right?
Yeah.
To sort of dictate their own policies. And this is something that, a lot of people don't know about this group. I'd never heard of this group until recently. Been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And they sort of put people on their group and their payroll. And, of course, they're going to come to the conclusions that they want them to come to. Do you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if David Rockefeller's funding this thing and paying your bills, and he wants you on his in his think tank to come up with something that he thinks is happening, or a lot of people at the top, overpopulation, eugenicists. You've probably seen a lot of that recently.
Oh, yeah.
People talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like the serfs. They want just enough peasants to pull the knobs and push the buttons and, to do the jobs that,
Right.
Ted Turner, he's a big guy who's been quoted many times talking about there needs to be billions of people gone, right?
Yeah. Isn't Bill Gates behind that? Isn't he all for that or something?
Yeah.
Overpopulation.
Yeah.
Which, let's face it, it is a problem.
Right.
So but they want to Thanos it.
Right.
And just, yeah.
Yeah, he was a lawyer for Planned Parenthood, but they assume that Bill Gates' father was also could have been more like on a board or something with Planned Parenthood, in more of a capacity that was a little more in charge of things and dictating policy and stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
But for sure, he was a lawyer, and I assume their law firm had something to do with, protecting Planned Parenthood. And it's theorized, that Planned Parenthood was sort of an organization created to help keep a certain population under control.
Yeah.
I can't remember the lady's name that started it, but she was a known eugenicist, okay? A lot of her writings and stuff still exist. She was pretty open about it. And so they're putting him with that group, which he was part of, or is part of.
Yeah.
Or was when he was, still a lawyer. I guess he doesn't need to work anymore.
Nope. Nope.
Son being as rich as he is. But he was already well off anyway.
Yeah.
As a lawyer. But these types of groups like Club of Rome, and there's so many think tanks, alliances, organizations, I would just encourage people to look at their boards, okay, and look at where they get their funding, and always follow the money. Look where the money's coming from.
Yeah.
John Birch Society. I've seen that one several times. And you go back to like even Freemasons, Freemasonry. So lots of conspiracies, around all of those different groups because we don't know what they are. We don't know really what they do.
Yeah.
I said John Birch Society.
I was just going to say, I've never
that
heard
one,
of that.
but I just know that I've seen it before. Is it intellectuals just jerking each other's egos off, or is there more to it?
Is that how you jerk an ego? That little hand motion you were just doing? Okay.
That's exactly how I do it. And it could be. It could just be that. Your Bilderbergs, your Bohemian Grove could just be a little resort up there for a bunch of old perverts to go and,
jerk each other's egos.
Yeah. But with revelations like your Epstein's and stuff coming to light with blackmail operations, kitty pedophilia type situations, you have to think there's probably something more to it. This is, I'm reading up on the John Birch Society.
Yeah.
Just far-right politics. It says paleoconservatism, anti-communism. They always say that. They're anti-communist.
Come on.
So, yeah, again, created by businessman and founder Robert Welch in 1899. That's just the John Birch Society. But the Club of Rome, there's different ones of those too. And they all have scientists on their board. And what I've read, they sort of, this could be controversial, invented global warming. Because what do you do when you create something like that? You can then sort of take it any way you want to. And they have a lot of people that ultimately give advice to the government and their agencies, or basically tell them things and dictate policy. And, could be a problem.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's tons of them.
I was going to say something before you brought up the John Birch Society, but for the life of me, I can't remember what it is. I'm sorry. It was another organization. Oh, well. There's, like you said, there's tons of them.
Yep.
Yeah, what's one more on the list?
I couldn't even begin to.
Yeah.
But they always do that, though. Like, I guess because you're so rich, you just have nothing to do. So I'm going to make an organization or an alliance,
Yeah.
And we're just going to sit around here and, I don't like a lot of people. So I'm going to get these scientists on my board here to say that we need less people and that humans are creating this particular problem. Be very easy to do.
100%.
Because they have credentials.
Yeah.
All doctors, whatever, in their respective fields. You can basically get them to say and do what you want.
Mm-hmm. And it's not that far-fetched.
No.
To think that humans are causing all the problems. So
we do cause problems.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. He's right.
Correct.
What do you think about Bill Gates owning the most farmland of any one man?
Probably not a good idea.
What's going on there? Conspiracy.
He just wants to own all the farmland.
See, I would too, though. That's
have
something,
control
but
over
that's,
the food.
See, I wouldn't want that. I would just want to own the land. Be very John Dutton of me, but that's just me.
Hard to say where that one's going, man.
I know, and that's so that having this guy come in at work. If he gets here, get him started on Bill Gates. He's a anti-Bill Gates.
Bill Gates aficionado.
I don't know. He gets riled up. Just bring up Bill Gates, he'll get riled up. Bill Gates and Bill Nye is another guy that he gets so upset about. It's incredible. Two biggest conspiracies, Bill Nye and Bill Gates to him.
I guess because of the Bill Nye being pushing science as a religion, which I've seen a lot of recently. You just really questioning things is where the conspiracy becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Is where they don't want people sort of questioning things. You see that now in what's going on with the vaccines and the pandemic stuff going on. I have not been vaccinated, but I am not anti-vax. So there's many levels to this thing. Like I've said before, if I'm going to the Congo, man, I'm going to get the yellow fever vaccine. I'm going to get the malaria shot. Don't you worry. It's just the way this particular thing has rolled out and all of the other things attached to it, which a lot of people are reporting on now. All these sort of draconian, authoritarian things that are happening and how it's and not just like the pandemic stuff, obviously going global and the things that they need to, lock down.
Yeah.
But also the other things where these organizations are dictating globally. Things are happening not just in the U.S. or not just in Italy or not just wherever, but globally. So you have this world order sort of forming here, which is what people are concerned about.
Yeah.
You know, and just being able to question the science of certain things, you know, is becoming a problem. So I guess conspiracy theories or conspiracy minded people, you know, are just worried.
Yeah. Oh boy, are they.
Because there's so much bullshit that we've been talking about for the past couple hours. There's so many lies. Everything's a lie. And there's been so much dark shit taking place.
Yeah.
There's a reason why people have questions and concerns.
It's just, I just don't like when people get shitty about it and angry.
Right, yeah, I mean, I don't want to waste time trying to debate shit. Everybody's got their point of view. Everybody's got their opinion. You're not going to convince somebody.
Never. That's never going to happen. I think that's what everybody's going for.
Debating stuff. What a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's to me it's fun to talk about.
Have a dialogue.
Think about, but I'm not ever going to try to change somebody's mind. But hey, that's just me. And you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I spend a good deal of time reading up on this stuff. And unless you have also, you're not going to tell me any different. You're just not. Because I've seen and read too much at this point to where I don't believe, I'm just not going to believe it. Especially if it's coming from some sort of mainstream source, it's just not going to happen with me.
Yeah.
If you don't have at least 5 books under your belt, the JFK assassination alone, you can fuck off because you don't know what you're talking about. If you're parroting like mainstream nonsense, identity politics, and anything else they can throw out there to create division and cause people to, you know, point their fingers everywhere else but where they really need to. If you're not talking about any of these things, you're an idiot and you don't know what you're talking about and you're wasting my time. And if anybody else that's listening to this should ever spend any time reading up on these things themselves, you'll think the exact same thing. You'll stop wasting your time with these pointless arguments that go nowhere and have nothing to do with anything. You get that guy today, Justin.
Yeah, I like it.
I get more like myself when we get into these topics.
Oh, yeah. That's
I haven't gone full rant yet, but
we'll get there though. That's what I wanted this to be from the get-go. Was just me saying maybe 3-4 words, and then the Josh tirade.
You think you can
comes out?
Go off on your own here for a few minutes while I
no
go to the bathroom?
No, this is a partnership. Well, we have been going for 2 hours now.
Well, what do you say?
How about we call this like conspiracy theory chit-chat or something, and we'll part 1.
Part 1.
And then we'll come back to it. Maybe we'll do a couple episodes. We'll come back part 2.
I like it. Let's do this as a part 1. Covered a lot of information.
Yeah.
And we'll do a part 2.
Yeah. I dig it. All right. So you go. I'm just going to give them all the stuff. Email.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, you know, it's across the board. Terribly Vexed Podcast at Terribly Vexed Podcast on Twitter.
Send us emails.
Gmail. Terribly Vexed Podcast at gmail.com. Yeah. And a guy contacted us from the YouTube channel. Hold on, let me get it here. It is, good Lord, the Enigma something or other. I deleted it. Of course I did. I will. Well, we'll tell you next episode. He wants to use part of our Dwight McCarter interview in a video that he's making. So look forward to that. We'll keep you informed on that. I'm sure you're going to be just on the edge of your seat waiting. But, yeah, so there we go. Just get in touch with us, Twitter, Instagram, Terribly Vexed Podcast. And I guess that'll be that, Josh. I can hear his strong, proud stream. And on that note, we're going to end it. So we'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.